The Forgotten Patriot of West Sutton. The story of Corporal Samuel Waters. There are some people in Sutton whose names are written on monuments. There are others whose names are found in our history books. And then there are those whose fingerprints are still all around us, but whose stories have almost been forgotten. Today, I want to introduce you to one of those men. His name was Samuel Waters. He was a Revolutionary War patriot, a Baptist pastor, a businessman and landowner in West Sutton. And the church he helped lead is still standing today. Yet, when you go to his grave, there is nothing there to tell you, the average visitor, that this is a Revolutionary War patriot who is buried there. This is the story of Corporal Samuel Waters of Sutton, Massachusetts. Samuel Waters was born in 1750, the sixth child and fourth son of Richard and Anna Waters. The Waters family was deeply rooted in West Sutton. And when the American Revolution came to Massachusetts, the Waters family answered. He was one of four Waters brothers who served in the local militia, along with his brothers Ebenezer, Abraham, and Stephen. Samuel served as a corporal in Captain John Sibley's company in Colonel Ebenezer Learned's regiment. And then came the morning of April 19th, 1775. The British regulars had marched towards Lexington and Concord. The alarm went across Massachusetts. The militia was called, and Samuel Waters marched. The 2026 research published by Waters Farm Preservation identifies Samuel specifically as a corporal in Sibley's company and states that his company answered the April 19th alarm to Lexington and Concord. That means Samuel Waters wasn't simply someone who supported the revolution from a distance. He was there when the alarm came. He was one of the men who responded. He was part of that generation of Massachusetts citizens who suddenly found themselves in the war for independence. Now, if you've watched our previous video about General Rufus Putnam, this is where the story gets especially interesting, because Samuel Waters and Rufus Putnam belong to the same Revolutionary era story of this part of Massachusetts. Putnam was another major military figure for the town of Sutton. But there's an important distinction. Samuel Waters and Rufus Putnam were not serving in the same regiment on April 19th, 1775. Waters was serving in Colonel Ebenezer Learned's regiment. Putnam was serving as a lieutenant colonel in David Brewer's regiment. Both men were part of Massachusetts' military response during those critical opening days of the Revolution. And that tells us something important about Sutton, Massachusetts. The Revolution wasn't just something happening somewhere else. It wasn't just Lexington. It wasn't just Concord. It wasn't just Boston. It reached right into communities like Sutton. Men from these towns heard the alarm, and they went. Samuel Waters and Rufus Putnam were two of them. But Samuel Waters didn't spend his life at war. No. Here's where Samuel Waters' story takes an interesting turn. The Revolution ended. America became an independent nation, and Samuel Waters came home to Sutton. But he didn't disappear into history. Instead, he became an important figure in the religious life of the area in Sutton called West Sutton. Waters became a Baptist preacher and eventually the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Sutton. He served as its pastor from 1799 until 1825, 26 years to be exact. Think about that. The same man who answered the Revolutionary War alarm in 1775 would eventually stand in the pulpit and lead the town's Baptist congregation, his own hometown at that, for more than 2 decades. An old history of Sutton remembers Samuel Waters standing in the pulpit of that Baptist church, leading the congregation in morning devotions. It describes him as the venerable and venerated Elder Samuel Waters. His life had moved from military service to ministry, from defending his community to shepherding it. And here's the interesting thing. This is where the story becomes something we can actually see, because the church still exists. See, Samuel Waters pastored the church during a period of significant growth. The congregation eventually outgrew its second meeting house. And in 1829, the congregation completed the present sanctuary, the third church building in its history. However, Samuel Waters died the year before in 1829, so he never saw the completed building. But the congregation he led for 26 years built it immediately after his death, and that building still stands. Today, the church is known as Legacy Church. And over its nearly 3 centuries of history, it has become known by several names: the Old Baptist Meeting House, the First Baptist Church, West Sutton Baptist Church, Sutton Baptist Church, and today, Legacy Church. The name has changed, the generations have changed, but the congregation continues. And that means that when we stand in that sanctuary today, we are standing in a church whose history runs directly through the life of Samuel Waters. Samuel Waters was also part of the Waters family's extensive presence in West Sutton. The historic Samuel Waters Tavern at 650 Central Turnpike is associated with Samuel Waters and his wife Prudence, and is believed to date back to the mid-1700s. The Sutton Historical Society describes Samuel as one of several members of the Waters family who owned land in Sutton. The property later remained in the Waters family for generations. The tavern also became connected with the Olive Branch Lodge of Masons, which established its headquarters there before eventually moving to Sutton Center. So the Waters name wasn't simply found in church records. It was found on the physical landscape of West Sutton, and pieces of that landscape are still there. There is another side of Samuel Waters that is easy to overlook also. He was a writer. In 1793, he published a religious work concerning Abraham's conduct in sending his servant to find a wife for his son. It was printed in Worcester. So here we have a man whose life crossed several worlds. He was a revolutionary militiaman, a Sutton landowner, a tavern keeper, a Baptist preacher, a religious writer, and a community leader. He lived through the transformation of Massachusetts from a British colony into an American state. And then he spent his life, the rest of it, helping build the community that followed. Samuel Waters died in 1828. He had lived through the Revolution. He served his community, serving in positions such as the Select Board. He had preached the gospel and helped shepherd that Baptist congregation through a period of growth. He was eventually laid to rest in the West Sutton Cemetery. But here's what strikes me. Not just as a historian or a member of a lineage society, or even as the pastor of that same Baptist congregation. If you visit his grave today, you don't immediately see the story. There isn't a great monument announcing his Revolutionary War service. There's no marker that says Revolutionary War Patriot or this man answered the alarm of April 19th, 1775. Samuel Waters is not simply a man we're guessing was involved in the Revolution. His service is preserved in genealogical records. In fact, the Daughters of the American Revolution's genealogical system exists specifically to document verified Revolutionary-era patriots and lineages connected to them. And Samuel Waters is recognized right there through the Revolutionary lineage records associated with the Waters family. So the irony is this: genealogists remember him. Historical records remember him. His church still remembers him. But the stone over his grave doesn't tell you the story of the patriot who lies beneath it. Why does that matter? Some people might ask that. But history is fragile. Names disappear. Buildings change. Families move on. And eventually, unless somebody tells the story, we stop knowing who these people were. A grave marker isn't just a piece of stone. It is a message to the next generation. It says, someone mattered here. Someone sacrificed here. Someone helped build the community you have inherited. And in Samuel Waters' case, there is a story worth telling. He heard the alarm in 1775. He marched with the Massachusetts militia. He came home. He became a pastor. He served the people of Sutton for 26 years. And the church he helped still stands today. The legacy of Samuel Waters is this. Today, the congregation he served continues to worship in Sutton, Massachusetts. The present sanctuary stands as a landmark. The Samuel Waters Tavern remains part of Sutton's historic landscape. And Samuel Waters himself remains part of the revolutionary generation that helped create the nation we live in. His story also connects with the larger story of Sutton's patriots, including General Rufus Putnam, whose own Revolutionary War story we explored in an earlier video. Different men, different military assignments, but the same community, the same generation, the same great struggle for American independence. So the next time you drive through West Sutton, Massachusetts, remember the name Samuel Waters. Not Major Waters, not simply Elder Waters, but Corporal Samuel Waters, the revolutionary militiaman who answered the alarm of April 1775. Remember the pastor who served the First Baptist Church for 26 years. Remember the man whose generation helped establish the nation we inherited. And remember that the church he helped lead is still here. Nearly 200 years after his death, the congregation still gathers. The building still stands. The story still survives. But his grave remains remarkably quiet, because somewhere beneath the ground lies a man who heard the call of his generation and answered. Corporal Samuel Waters of Sutton, Massachusetts, Revolutionary War patriot, Baptist pastor, Sutton citizen, and a part of the legacy of West Sutton that still stands today. I'm Don McKinnon, and this is another story of the history that needs to be shared. If you enjoyed this look at this extraordinary Sutton revolutionary patriot, maybe you would like to see an earlier video I did on General Rufus Putnam, because his story is another remarkable connection to that town. God bless, and God bless the memories of those who built this community and this great nation. Like and subscribe.